Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Crissy Piper, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome to episode 3 of Suburban Warrior, the podcast. Today, I have a guest on that will literally transform your life. Regina Longo is a highly trained transformational life coach, motivational speaker, and yoga teacher with over 20 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She uses spirit-based practices and principles, enabling you to expand as a presence in which the deepest levels of renewal and understanding of self can unfold. These transformational practices are not something that can be measured. It is a powerful process of the allowing and the awakening of the true, authentic self and soul. Welcome, Regina, and thank you so much for being on the show today to share your warrior story and journey with us.
Hi, Crissy. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So first, I want to explain to listeners that I have known Regina for almost 20 years now, which is a pretty crazy long time. And, we met when I first started taking Regina's yoga class way back in the day, probably right about when you were starting out and becoming certified and teaching yoga. And it has really been such an amazing experience and pleasure for me to witness your personal transformation over these years.
Thank you. And, you're right. I think probably my first yoga class, you may have been in it, if not the first, the second, when I was probably shaking in my boots, first standing up to teach. But yeah, we've been together on this journey side by side, I think, mirroring each other, even though there's been some time in our lives that, we drifted off and life has taken its course and somehow found each other again at probably the right timing on our own paths.
Absolutely. Because I know now, I try to take your yoga class at least once a week because for me, it's really hard to believe and hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it, but it's hard to believe that so much growth and empowerment and change can be experienced in a 75-minute yoga class, but it does. And every week for me, I have to say it's not only a physical challenge to get through your class, but you really have to utilize your mental strength to get through it. And the way that you guide us and the words that you use and the intention in which you teach the practice, really truly allows me to push through obstacles in my life, not just in the yoga class, but when I get out of yoga, I feel so empowered to take on what it is I need to do that I'm so grateful for you and for what you do. So why don't we start out by you telling us about what it is that you do, about, what, as a transformational life coach, how are you guiding your clients and through this process of transformation?
Right. Well, thank you. That was very nicely said, what exactly you said, because if I could step for a moment and talk about yoga, most people think that, yoga is, let me see how I can twist and manipulate and get my body into a certain shape and pose or position. And that is part of the process of yoga, but yoga is so much bigger than that. It's kind of almost like you said, where it not only is challenging to you on a physical sense, whomever is going into a yoga practice, but it's also more of a mental It's way much more of a mental and emotional. And the three have to come together in unison, in union, if you will, to create and cultivate a connection in order for us to understand and move into a place of gratitude, into the state of appreciation and grace. And that truly is what it's about. And that is how it unfolded it for myself, if you will, ever since my own experience personally getting on my mat 20 years ago, before I became a yoga teacher, and put myself in this purpose, if you will, that basically fell into my hands. When I found my own self in that state of grace and appreciation, is how I opened up my own heart into understanding, like, what is it that I need to do to give back, because I was receiving so much. So as a transformational life coach, it goes hand in hand with that cultivation of connecting to your inner wisdom or your higher self or your inner being. We use so many words loosely anymore, but it really is us connecting with our, not one of us is missing it, by the way, our emotional guidance system, which is our internal self, our higher self. And as a transformational life coach, it's just me helping individuals take a hold and reconnect to those tools and how to use them appropriately in their lives so they can navigate their way through the calm waters and yet the rough waters, because really life gives us that. You know, it's not just this beautiful stream, although it can be this beautiful flow of energy, even though we will have tsunamis at times, right? Because the tsunamis, they will show up. In other words, like the rug will be pulled out from underneath us, which some of us refer to as like a disappointment or a disaster or a challenge going on in our life. But we understand how to manage it better. I don't know if that went off the subject a little bit, but of the question.
No, not at all. I think
yeah.
it was, right on. And you spoke about the emotional guidance system that we all have. And again, I think in your teachings during practice, you do tap into that a lot. And how can you explain, like, how do we tap into that on a daily basis? Maybe if we're, not in a yoga practice.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's something that takes work and takes probably a daily practice and time. How would you explain to begin to tap into that guidance system that we all have?
Right. That's an excellent question. What a lot of us are challenged to recognize is that at all times, we're perfectly free to choose. And that's where we fall out of alignment, so to speak, or off our path, off our way of navigating our way through life, is we think that we don't have a choice and that we're, stuck in a certain situation or an experience. When, just like you mentioned moments ago, it is a process to understand that having a choice at all times means that we're put on the planet, and one of our main purposes is freedom. And that's what our higher self wants for us, or whatever we call our connection. Some of us refer to it as God, some of us call it universe or pure source. But it's about getting out ahead of it. Most of us react rather than respond to each experience and situation. But if we, like you mentioned, a process, if we create this daily ritual, whether it be working out, whether it be meditating 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, or journaling, once we get this daily practice in play, it's very easy to calm the fluctuations of the mind. So you get out ahead of it and you actually witness and observe how you want the experience to unfold. We think that the experiences we go through dictate our next move. It's actually us dictating the move, if you will. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt. Like like if you go get lost out in the woods, if you've ever done that when you were children and you're playing like hide and go seek, you kind of like get out there and you hide, but yet you're instinct is to not get caught, right? By whomever your siblings or your friends trying to find you. So your instinct is trying to show you what's my next step, and you're, to not get caught. And it's so much fun to do that as a child. And somehow we lost that along the way because we have allowed our experiences to dictate what our next move is, when really that emotional inner guidance system, if you allow yourself to stay connected to it, helps you navigate what your next move is. So, my response to that would be, once you work on self enough, and yes, it is a process, and a lot of us get frustrated with it. We do it for a certain period of time, and then we give up. Right when we're on the brink of creating that change, that transformation, we give up and we fall back into our old patterns, I should say, our comfort zone, if you will, when really the joy and the part of the process is getting to know yourself, how it feels to you, by getting out in ahead of it and saying, look, what would it feel like to me if I responded like this, or if I nurtured myself and I didn't put myself in such a tricky situation? Like, how would I feel? Once you feel like a state of satisfaction, you're not going to put yourself in a messy situation again, right? So we learn through experiences and through the process.
And that's amazing. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, I feel like I'm in yoga class, because I love everything that you have to say. But why do you think that is, that we get to that brink of, transformation, or, we get right to that edge and then pull back into comfort, as opposed to moving forward and experiencing the growth and the joy and the change?
Right. On a humanistic level, we're taught from a very young age, and unfortunately it's from generation after generation, that we're taught from a fear-based mentality. So the comfort zone, even though it's stinky for some of us, we tend to keep going back to it because it's just, quite frankly, that it's comfortable. The unknown is such a fearful place for people when they don't recognize that that's really where their power is. That's where their strength is. That's where they'll find another version of themselves that they never met before. And that's really what the whole process is about, to keep getting through each experience, whether it be something through work or through a family situation or friendship situation or any experience. Quite frankly, we get to know ourselves, and when we get to know yourself so easily, it's so much more easier to then be yourself in that experience without the fear, without carrying the luggage, so to speak, on our backs. When you let go, it's like if you were carrying a weighted vest with you, and every day we put more weight in the weighted vest. After, of course, you're going to get a little bit stronger, but after a while, it's going to get frustrating because it becomes heavier and heavier. But then you become comfortable with it because it's all you know. But when you let go of that vest and we take that off our bodies, what a sense of relief, that lightness that you feel. And that's where that freedom comes in. And you start to literally take steps differently and dance a different dance.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love that. And so one of the things, obviously we're both coaches. I'm a performance coach. You're a transformational coach. When you dial it all down, we're both life coaches that focus on mindset and how the power of your mindset can transform your life. We just use, maybe a little bit of different tools and different language.
Yes.
And what I love about, listening to you is, a lot of what I do is focused on positive psychology and, science-based changing your mindset, but I also very much love the spiritual side of it as well, and think that it is so important into, looking at us as a whole human being and our growth. And I think what you do so well is pull in that spirituality, which can sometimes be tricky because, right, we're talking about whether it's God or the universe, or you used another term that I forget.
Pure source or energy.
Yes, pure source, exactly, or energy. And And you do it in such a way, especially in class, because you have, I don't even know how many, a room full of people in class, but yet everyone is connected to it. So, there's so many people out there that are like, oh, that's so woo woo. And, they don't really believe in law of attraction, and
Right.
it gets too deep for them. But I feel like you have such a great way of balancing the spirituality part of it. And you're also so real and grounded, and you curse all the time. And I love that. And so
I love
tell me a
that
little
one. My
bit.
favorite word is the F word.
Yeah, well, me too. So that's why I love it when you drop it in yoga. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. But tell me a little bit about how you're able to do that and combine it and teach it and talk about it in such a way that doesn't feel like it's overpowering in a
Yeah.
spiritual nature.
Yes. Thank you. The beautiful thing is all of us, not most, all of us do understand that there is something bigger than us. So, and again, whatever terminology someone uses to connect with is completely amazing as long as they're doing it. And so I try to drive that home so we remember and we focus on cultivating and staying true to that connection, not just when things are going wrong, not just crying out and begging to whatever it is you call it, like Buddha or God or or divine whatever, to come to me now because my child's ill, or finances are rough right now. We need to call out to that all of the time, and that connection is what keeps us in alignment. You use the word, the law of attraction, which that's where I really go from, and I've grown from myself, and that is my go-to all the time. I mention alignment a lot. We're always in alignment, right? We're either in alignment, if and when I say alignment, meaning things are always working out for each and every one of us all the time. And I know some people are thinking like, no, that's not the case, because my life couldn't be any more far from where I want it to be, because your power is in your focus of what you're thinking about and what you're connecting to. And if your focus is on things aren't working out for me, well, then that's what's not working out for you. If your focus is on everything works out the way I intend it to be, you have to go down deep inside your soul and ask, what am I intending? Am I intending fear, or am I intending love in this situation? Am I seeing it as, yes, I'm moving through grace and appreciation, or I'm moving through like resistance, resentment, frustration, and anger? Because it's going to work out either way. It's just, where is your focus? Because wherever your focus is, that's where your power is. That's how I'm able to, and of course, my own life experiences, Crissy, quite frankly, like your own, and hopefully most understand this. We learn through our experiences. My own life experiences have taught me that, myself included. I too have been broken and down to my knees when my parents have passed, different times in my life, through the ending of a job or a relationship, whether it was to my choosing or another, even choosing to leave a job. For a while there, when I was younger, I found myself like being in a job and not understanding, like, wow, everybody's in the corporate world. I get into this beautiful, amazing corporate position with the money that I asked for, the position that I asked for, but why aren't I finding that clear-cut happiness? And it's because my focus was on the money and trying to find the corporate, quote unquote, corporate job, but I wasn't in alignment with the true essence of who I am. Not what I do for a living, but who I am. And that's that spiritual connection. Once you get a hold of that, it's like, I can't snap my fingers quick enough to let it be. So everything manifests and moves into alignment to what your true heart's desire is. And that's where some of us fail to recognize, and we actually get stuck on the fear-based principles rather than the principles of love and appreciation.
Okay, so I have two places I want to go based on what you were just saying.
Sure.
First, I mentioned law of attraction, and, I am a believer and a follower in the law of attraction, but I know you are what I would call more of an expert in the law of attraction. So for those listening that are not aware of exactly what the law of attraction is, can you just give a little explanation of that?
Sure. The law of attraction really by definition is, you know, basically like attracts like. What you think about, you're drawing unto you what you're focused on. And to give you a more of a simpler explanation, when I was in the corporate industry, I knew that, I had to earn a living to survive. And I couldn't quite figure out like what my mission, what my purpose was, what it was that like lit me up out of bed and like allowed me to jump up and like stand on my feet and be like, yes, today's another day where I get to help somebody. I started moving in that direction by default of trusting my feelings. And my feelings, believe it or not, me on a personal level, I have a great love for BMWs. So, excuse me, I always wanted a BMW. I was uncertain at the time in my late 20s how in God's creation I was going to get myself a BMW. And I said to myself, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to manifest it. That's what the law of attraction is about. What you think about, you bring about. I said, I'm going to manifest it. I got online and I got on BMWUSA.com and I had a brochure mailing come to me at the time. Now everything's digital, but they sent me the pamphlet, the brochure, and I took one of the pictures, happened to be a convertible on this beautiful country road, on this windy road, looking over the ocean. So I cut that picture out. I put it on my nightstand. I cut a picture of myself out. This is a true story. I cut a picture of myself out and placed my face over the face that was in the car. And every night and every morning, every night I went to bed and every morning I woke up, that's what I saw. That's what the first thing I saw when I woke up and the last thing I saw when I went to bed. So in my thought process was me in that BMW as soon as my eyes woke up from my slumber and before they closed to go down in the slumber for the night. So my focus was there all the time. And it goes on a deep sense into a cellular level, if you will, down through your ligaments, your organs. You know that feeling, that sensation when people find out like, they're going on vacation and they're super excited to tell the children, or the first time to Disney, or maybe someone did do their first home purchase, or they're, a new couple's pregnant with their first child. There's that thrill, there's that exhilaration. That feeling was going through me regarding the BMW. And so I played a game with myself. And before you knew it, I was working at BMW and I was able to get the employee discount. And before you knew it, I was picking out the colors, the equipment I wanted on my car. And while my 5.5-year experience at BMW, at the time, I owned 3 BMWs. So since then, I learned the law of attraction, or the art of manifestation, which I now call it the art of allowing. And that's when you allow yourself to surrender, to get calm. And as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, to get out ahead of it. And getting out of ahead of it is feeling those feelings of satisfaction, of joy, of harmony, what feels amazing. And that's how we create. That's the law of attraction. And not one of us is slighted from it. Not one of us cannot enjoy what it brings to us. The fruits of our thoughts. It sounds very simple, and it's just as simple as it sounds. We make it on a humanistic level harder than it is. We think we have to force and work super hard to push, when it's actually all I did. If you listen to the story I just told, I pulled all that in. I pulled in the car, even though it was a picture. I put my face on it. I put the feeling behind it. I pulled it all in to my path, if you will, or as the law of attraction calls it, the vortex.
I love that. And, basically you created that vision board, that picture for yourself, and created that feeling of exhilaration that you saw every single morning and every single night.
That's right.
And it's amazing. It's just, I love that story. So thank you very much for sharing it with us, because it really helps to make the law of attraction and explain how concrete it actually is. And I know I have experienced the law of attraction absolutely in my own life. And it is when you are able to just allow, as
Yes.
opposed to work, 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 work. And the other thing that I think was so interesting about your story, and what I also have learned about law of attraction and try to practice, is that you really do want to be specific with your ask,
That's
right?
correct. That's very,
Yeah,
very true.
yeah, because sometimes when you're not specific, it shows up in a different way. And you're like, wait a second,
So
this is
in
sort of what I asked for, but not
right,
really.
in my scenario, it did show up. I became an employee selling the BMWs. It was a way to the way of getting the car, right?
Exactly.
It wasn't just me going in off the street. The universe had it, or God, or whatever you want to call it, pure source, me focusing in that vibration, if you will, in alignment with my desires, allowed me to get to the BMW. I wasn't specific as to how I wanted it. But that, you're
Exactly.
absolutely right. When you visualize, when we're creating, because the truth is, everything that we experience has been by choice. And at the time, it was my choice just to put a picture up and to just put my face in it, not saying like I want it by winning it, or I want it by, you know, just going in off the street. I didn't even give guidance to my connection, but it still came to me because I was so focused in on it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, can you tell us about maybe a turning point, or when there was a shift in your life where you discovered your purpose? Like you mentioned that you had that, like, the corporate, and then you really, the time when you were trying to figure out what your purpose was, and how to
Right.
maybe make that shift in your life. Was there an event that happened? Was it, what made you sort of
Right.
realign your
Yeah.
goals and make the shift to do what you do now?
Okay. I've been a yoga teacher for 20 years now, and the transformational life coaching part of my career has come in probably within the last 6+ years, incorporated, a little over that now, incorporated along with the yoga that I teach. And it's there isn't one particular pivotal point, although every experience has led me to the next, to the next, to the next. I will say to you that I knew, leaving the corporate world, even my great love of BMW, and going back into being a teacher full time and moving into life coaching full time as well, um, was me coming to a sense of owning my self worth, loving myself enough. And not too long ago, probably we're already in 2020, probably at least 4 or 5 years ago, I was in a long-term relationship that had come to its end. Also reminded me to remind myself, my higher self reminded me to remind my human self that I am worthy, and that I don't need to force anything or anyone to love me. I just need to make sure I stand in my truth and feel that sense of self-worth and know that I deserve. That kind of catapulted my business, actually, if you will. It actually catapulted my business tremendously, because I started seeing it differently, feeling it differently, and speaking differently, which drew in, again, the law of attraction, drew in the right clientele that was ready to hear that. Now, at the time, was I saddened by the end of my relationship? I was. Were there glimpses and moments of What did I do that I failed? When those questions came up within, that's why meditation or yoga or coming into that, as we spoke moments ago, not forcing and getting quiet and still, whether it be through journaling or just the art of allowing, comes into play so nicely here, is because that's when I realized, wait, it's actually working out for me. Because why would I force a relationship or any experience that's not serving my highest good? And when I let go of that and said only I could serve my highest good and my connection to my belief and what I believe in of God or the universe, that's when it catapulted me. And that allowed me to stand more so in my truth and see my sense of self-worth and what it is I deserve.
Wow. That really is a very powerful message, because being able to stand in your truth and know your self-worth and really just love yourself
Yes.
is not always easy, and it's the challenge for all of us, because it's those limiting beliefs and the self-doubt that everybody battles each and every day.
Right.
So recognizing that and knowing that it was a very pivotal point where you were able to finally do that and then consistently take the actions that you needed to, that's really where the magic happens.
That is where the juice is and exactly where the magic happens. And as we mentioned earlier, when we talked about the spiritual principles right off the beginning of our conversation today, our human senses, if you will, our 5 human senses, even though we're blessed to have them, they're limited. When you think about it, they're really limited. There's only so much you can see with your human eye, hear with your human ear, the taste and touch and so forth. But it's when you connect, when you get out ahead of it, when you allow yourself to connect in whatever that belief is, the universe, God, that's what's limitless. There's the magic. That's you bridging. That's us as a human being, a human race, bridging that gap from, remember when we said earlier in this conversation, keeping us from our comfort zone, in our comfort zone. We create a bridge, if you will, when you create that meditation and you connect to your higher self. And then you're able to take that leap into the unknown, not being able to see it sometimes with your human eye, trusting it with your inner knowingness, bridging the gap. There's the magic. That's where all the juice is.
And exactly. And it sounds like, in order to get out of our limiting beliefs, it's really, again, not in all of our human traits, but in the connection, in that almost like sixth sense, right?
That's right. Exactly.
It's in that connection with ourself, with the universe, God, the higher power.
That's
that
correct.
is really what allows us to overcome those constant limiting beliefs that we all have.
That's absolutely correct. And you mentioned the 6th sense and that emotional guidance system that I spoke of earlier. That is your intuition. We've all experienced. There's not one person on the planet, unless we were talking to a 2 or 1-year-old that didn't quite comprehend our adult languaging so much now, that hasn't had a glimpse of their intuition. Even if we ask them on small layman's terms, people have had that understanding, like that gut feeling. I have a feeling I should call Crissy today and see how she's doing. Or maybe I should take a left turn here. That's your intuition. That's your higher self speaking to self. And once we practice that over and over, that's about relaxing and having faith and believing in it and trusting it and moving towards that higher sense, that 6th sense, that intuition. That's where we move into our higher consciousness. That's transformation. That's change.
And that's the change that I'm talking about, that I feel in your class every week.
That's right.
It is. And when I'm meditating, I meditate every morning, and I try to feel it then and tap into it. But again, I think it's work. And not work in the sense that I'm fighting so hard to find the connection. It's work for me as a mom of 4 kids and a busy wife and a working mom to
Yes.
find the time
Yes.
to connect, and to make it a priority for myself to meditate, to get to your yoga class. But I have to prioritize it because to me, it's an integral part of my life now to be able to feel that connection. And like I said, I really do feel like I feel that transformation when I am in your class, and I'm sure your clients feel it when they work with you, because you are just so great at
Thank you.
the words that you speak and in doing it. None of us make it out here alone, right? We
That's
are
right.
all here to be connected with each other. And even the smallest acts can have the greatest impact. And that's why, sometimes it's just one phrase that you say or one word that you say, and I take it with me throughout the rest of my day or the rest of my week. And it's pretty amazing when you
Yes.
experience that connection and that transformation.
Yes, that's so true. Thank you. That's lovely and very well stated. Very well stated.
Well, thank you. Well, I want to thank you so very much for joining me on this podcast today, because, like I said, I think that you have such a wonderful way of using your words to really transform other people's lives. And that truly is a gift. And I feel so grateful to be able to experience it with you once a week. But now, so many other people can experience it through your words on this podcast.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing everything with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. The pleasure has been mine. And I, too, am so grateful to have had this opportunity to be one of your guests.
Absolutely. So if you guys would like to hear more from Regina Longo, you can visit her website at reginalongo.com and also find her on Instagram and Facebook at Regina Longo. And thank you again for joining Suburban Warrior, the podcast. Please review, rate, and subscribe to the podcast if you enjoyed this podcast, because we have so much to come. You can find me on Instagram at Suburban Warrior or at CrissyPiper.com. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.